present a brief introduction after Dr. Indranill Ji. Dr. Ji is a physician and a yogi in Kriya Yoga tradition. He is a cardiologist, electrophysiologist, and the director of cardiovascular research at the VA Medical Center in Memphis, USA, and also a professor at the School of Public Health, University of Memphis. Dr. Basu Ray is also a visiting professor of cardiology and head of integrative cardiology at the All India Institute of Medical Sciences at Rishikesh in India. He's also a Link Q faculty at MIT Boston. In addition, he has been a former faculty at multiple distinguished schools, including Harvard Medical School and Tulane University. Dr. Indranill Ji, professional achievement list is big. If I go on, it will go into pages. Let me take this opportunity to present him as a practicing yogi. Dr. Indranill Ji has been meditating since the age of 6. He's an ardent meditator. He was initiated to Kriya Yoga of Maha Avatar Babaji by Swami Hariharananda Giriji, none other than the brother disciple of Paramahamsa Yogananda Ji, the Autobiography Yogi fame. Dr. Ji has been practicing, teaching, and researching meditation for over 3 decades now. Dr. Indranill Ji has made huge contribution in the field of research and therapy application, combining both West and Eastern knowledge, that's both yoga and modern medicine. His pioneering research suggested a newer cause of a stroke in patients with atrial fibrillation. His research centers use yoga and meditation in cardiovascular diseases. He is the founder and chairman of the American Academy of Yoga and Meditation, known as AAYM. It has been organizing the world's largest conference in yoga and meditation. The world's first conference on the role of meditation in cardiovascular disease was organized at AIIMS in Rishikesh in March 2019 under Dr. Indranill Ji's leadership and as a program director. It was attended by over 1,000 physician delegates from all over the world. AAYM has organized the second virtual conference throughout June this year under his leadership. This had over 100 speakers and over 50 sessions. He recently concluded a set of four programs for Doordarshan News on yoga and heart disease, diabetes, COVID, and cancer. This program had millions of viewers. Please join me welcoming Dr. Indranill Basu Ray Ji. Namaste, Dr. Ji.
Namaskar, Ji. I'm thankful for the very warm welcome. I'm not sure if I deserve
before we start your presentation, Dr. Ji, I would like to make an announcement to make. Firstly, I would like to acknowledge our partners for this webinar series: Vyasa LA, Yoga Bharati, Sanskrit Bharati, Heartful Institute, North South Foundation, Federation of Indian Physician Associations, and AAYM, and yes, Vyasa. If you have any questions during webinar, type them in Q&A box and we'll address them at the end of the talk. Without further delay, over to you, Indranill Ji. Namaste.
Namaskar. Thank you very much. I'm thankful for giving me this opportunity. Let me open up my talk. Can everybody see it?
Dr. Ji, there is little echo from your audio.
Yeah, let me take care of that. Sorry about that. Let me just take care of that.
Yeah, thank you.
Can you guys hear me now clearly?
Yeah, it's much better. Yeah, please go ahead.
Can everybody see my PowerPoint?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Namaskar, everybody. It is a pleasure to be with all of you. Today, I've decided that we'll talk about a topic that all of us wondered since our childhood. Who are we? Why are we on this earth? Is there a God? So the scientific way of putting it is, what is consciousness? Why are we conscious? What makes us think of God? What makes us think of the world? How do we see this universe? And all of us know science also has been trying to understand the same questions. Some of the biggest brains in science have been trying to understand the same questions. For over 2,000 years, over 100 Nobel Prizes, we unfortunately haven't even sketched the primary lines on understanding consciousness scientifically. But maybe we progress much more when we take the yogic way. And that's why I named my talk today. It's a talk about consciousness where a scientist, well, I'm basically a physician scientist. My research is on modern medicine and also on yoga, but principally on the frontiers of medicine. Most of my research have been on cardiology, cardiac electrophysiology. So I am a scientist who got turned into a yogi after 30 years of practice of Kriya Yoga. So I called it a rambling. Why is it a rambling? Because it's neither science nor non-science. Why is it not non-science? It's not science because science, unfortunately, have just began to understood what we people like practice yoga, the sages on whose shoulders we are standing, whether it is Shankaracharya, whether it is Vivekananda, whether it's Ramakrishna, whether it is Maharishi Patanjali. What they said, modern medicine is slowly beginning to understand and prove those. So it will take modern science a long period to really understand what we understood as a yogi. So let's go forward. I'm most welcome to answer any questions that you guys might have. Let's see how the both meet, how Western medicine and how yoga meets, and where do we need to go from here. So this person, almost everybody, whether he is a scientist, non-scientist, he's even educated or non-educated, may have known his name. His name is Francis Crick. He got a Nobel Prize as a young man for having discovered the DNA. DNA, as you guys know, is the bundle that makes us a man, makes a snake, a crocodile. So it is the sequence of information in every cell of our body that determines whether you are a human being, a snake, a reptile, whatever, a dog, a cat. So after getting Nobel Prize, he changed his research into consciousness, trying to find out, is there God? What is consciousness? Why are we here? So based on his thoughts, and that unfortunately remained the predominant thought in medicine till today, is whatever consciousness is, we do not know. But we know for certain that the brain causes consciousness. So does the brain cause consciousness? Okay, let's accept it because somebody as famous as Francis Crick said that. And let's go forward. So this concept in today's neuroscience, that brain is responsible for consciousness, is called neural correlate of consciousness, or NCC, which means whatever we can see, I can see my skull, I can see my brain. Therefore, science says this must be responsible for consciousness. But what happens when we cut the brain? For example, if you have epilepsy, you can have a large part of the frontal brain chopped off. It has been done in hundreds of patients. Do they lose consciousness? No. Do they understand what you're trying to say? Yes. Are they a little slower? Maybe. But do they think that they are a snake or a cat or a dog instead of human? No. Their consciousness is as intact as your and mine. What about this big piece of brain behind our back called the cerebellum, called the hindbrain, just behind the hindbrain? It has been chopped off multiple times. What happens to the human being? Can he walk? Yes. Is his walk slow? Yes. Does he fall while walking? Maybe. But does he lose consciousness? No. Does he stop thinking he is human? No. Then what in the brain is deciding consciousness? If my scientists are telling me that the brain decides consciousness, what in the brain? Let's go a little further. The frontal cortex, most important center. Center for judgment, it is thought. Center for making multiple decisions. If that is chopped off, as has been done in epilepsy again, patients still remain conscious. They don't turn themselves into snake. They don't lose consciousness. They know who their son is, who their daughter is, who their wife is, where they live. So then, okay, let's do one more thing. There's something called the corpus callosum. So we have two brains, the left and the right brain. We have one dominant brain. I'm a right-handed person, so my right hand, so my dominant brain is the one on the left side. So these two brains are connected by a highway that has got over 200 million nerve cells connecting. 200 million, imagine how big that is. Half of the more than the number of stars in this galaxy. And you cut it off into two pieces because you want to stop connection between the two brains. Has that been done in human beings? Hundreds times, because that is one of the most common surgical operation for what is known as intractable epilepsy. If you have intractable epilepsy, suppose the epilepsy starts in this part of the brain, then goes to the whole brain, they want to stop the spread. So they first try medicine. Medicine doesn't work. Then what do? They have to cut the connection connecting my two brains. The massive informational highway that connects the two brains. So what happens when you cut it? Nothing happens. Is the patient conscious? Absolutely, as good as you and me. So let's turn back and understand this one simple thing. Just because certain things you see, that doesn't mean that is the real truth. Why? Because we have to understand this, and that's where the concept of Maya or virtual reality comes in the Hindu philosophy, the Indian philosophy. Virtual reality means it is a reality that has been created because you're living on this earth and you have to maneuver yourself through this life. That doesn't mean that is the actual reality. So the whole universe is actually a connected whole. It's one single part. It's not divided into you, me, an animal, a snake, Earth, Jupiter, this star and that star. Everything is one connection. Are you joking? You mean to say I'm connected with the next star? You're not only connected with the next star, and that's scientific. I'm not talking about philosophy. You're connected one electron in your body, and that's what is known as quantum entanglement. If a partner electron in the other end of the universe, we don't know how many universes there are, maybe multiple universes, is connected. You as a person may not know, but yes, one electron in your body partnered with another electron in sun is connected. And that is the point where Einstein was proved wrong. What did Einstein say? Einstein said the fastest thing to connect between two bodies is light. So if I have light as the medium, I am talking and I send light to the moon, it takes a couple of seconds. So if I have electron with me here, partnered with a partner, as you know, electron always remains in pair. If one pair has a spin, which is clockwise, like a clock, the other will have a spin anti-clockwise. So initial part, as you know, Einstein was a celebrity. But when Niels Bohr and Werner Heisenberg came out with the theory of and a bunch of other physicists with the quantum physics, Einstein said that's not possible. How is it possible that everything in the universe is connected? That is spooky. It is spooky, but that's the truth. He went further and said God does not play dice. Unfortunately, he does, because God is only one. The whole universe is one. So when they take one of those electrons, keep them on Earth, another in the moon, and I give one of the electron a spin here on Earth, the other gets spun automatically the other aspect. So if I spin this, say by 30 degrees clockwise, that gets spun 30 degrees anti-clockwise, just exactly as it's supposed to do. But remember, I kept one on Earth and I took the other to the moon. So if I check the timing of the two electrons, there should be at least 8-second gap, the time that light takes to go from Earth to moon. Because if Einstein was true, that should be the difference. But experiments like this were done 1,000 times and they happen together. There's no gap. So everything in this universe is connected. Einstein was forced to prove wrong, and that set of experiment is known as Einstein-Podolsky-Rosen's experiment, EPR experiment, where Einstein was actually proved wrong. That's what quantum entanglement is. Going back to that man called Swami Vivekananda, he says that's why. There is logic, there is causation, but those are things of the earth. Once inside the infinite, there is no logic, there is no causation, because you're in the infinite. Infinite has got no 1, no 0. How can you have logic? How can you have 1 + 1 = 2 when there is no 1 and 0 and 2 all the same? There is no difference. Let's get a bit of understanding what quantum entanglement is.
Quantum mechanics shows us that reality is merely an illusion. It has been more than 100 years since we started decoding the universe at the tiniest scale. Over the years, we have discovered several intriguing phenomena in quantum physics, but the most interesting is quantum entanglement. This is such a mind-boggling reality that even Albert Einstein doubted its existence. He called it spooky action at a distance. To get an idea of how quantum entanglement works, consider this simple example. Suppose you have a pair of gloves, and you place 2 of them in 2 different boxes. After that, you shuffle the boxes and ask your friend to open one of the boxes. If he opens the box and finds a right-handed glove, then without opening the second box, you know that it contains a left-handed glove. This will remain true even if you take the second box to the moon or anywhere in the universe. That's because the 2 gloves were entangled entities and had a connection between them. One was right-handed and the other was left-handed. But things become spooky when you try to apply this principle to particles in the quantum realm. Particles have an intrinsic property called spin. Before you measure it, it can be in any direction. To measure the spin, first you need to specify the direction in which you wish to measure it. If you want to measure it horizontally, then the 2 possible outcomes will be left-handed or right-handed. If you wish to measure it vertically, then the 2 outcomes would be either up or down. Consider the spin of 2 particles. As mentioned earlier, before measurement it can point in any direction. Let's now measure the spin of 1 particle along the horizontal direction. Then the measured spin will be either right or left, each having a 50% chance. Even if you select the second particle for measurement, you will get the same results, 50% right and 50% left. However, if the particles are entangled just like the gloves, see what happens. If you measured the spin of the first particle and found it right, then the outcome of the second particle will be 100% left. So, the information of measurement got to the second particle the moment the first measurement was made. And here's the spooky thing. This information is transmitted instantaneously. If you make the measurement in one part of the universe, the quantum information can be sent to the entangled particle instantaneously, even in the opposite part of the cosmos. Remember, traveling at 300,000 kilometers per second, light is the fastest thing in the universe. But quantum entanglement is independent of it. So far, it was believed that quantum entanglement is purely a quantum phenomenon. However, scientists have recently observed this spooky action on a macroscopic scale. Entanglement is actually a correlation between 2 things. In the experiment, 2 teams of scientists crafted 2 aluminum drums of a red blood cell size. Each of these drums has roughly 1 trillion atoms. They placed them on a crystal chip and supercooled the setup to near absolute zero. Finally, they hit both the drums with microwaves. Struck by the microwaves, each drum vibrated, rising up and down by about the width of a proton. This minuscule motion was detectable as a change in the voltage of a circuit connected to the drums. When the drums are entangled, their amplitudes will be correlated. If one drum is measured to have a high amplitude, the other must have a low amplitude. The experiment was set up so meticulously that there was no way the drums could communicate with each other mechanically. The microwave served as the intermediary that lets them talk to each other. You might be wondering what the purpose of such experiments is. As things become large, they no longer exhibit exotic quantum behavior. The goal of such investigations is to bring something big into the quantum realm. The applications range from quantum computers to problems in physics that require subatomic precision, such as the detection of dark matter or gravitational waves. But perhaps the most compelling aspect of the work, beyond any applications, is that it simply brings us closer to the true quantum nature of the world.
So, as you saw, the whole universe is connected. What we think as logical is logical to us because we are living in the virtual reality, in the Maya. So the virtual reality gives us a smaller picture, and we'll go through that. Why does it give us a smaller picture? There's a reason for that too. So Vivekananda says it's our mental attitude which makes the world. What you're thinking, that's how the world is made. The whole world is in our own minds. The way you see, you create. It's really surprising that this is what Vivekananda said almost 200 years back, and that's what scientists are saying today. Electron doesn't exist, a proton doesn't exist, as long as you see it. The moment you see it, the moment an observer sees it, that electron comes into existence. Imagine this. A philosopher who had just passed BA in arts 250 years back or 200 years back understood the truth of the whole universe that took us 250 years, over 100,000 scientists, big nuclear reactors like CERN where they discovered the Higgs boson and things like that. That's the power of yoga. I remember a very important thing that Werner Heisenberger once said. Werner Heisenberger said, what we are inventing today are not invention, they are discoveries. For they have been invented by Hindu rishis long ago. John Wheeler, one of the fathers in this science of quantum world, says, no phenomena is a real phenomena until it is observed phenomena. You observe it as an observer, I observe it as an observer, that's what it happens. There's nothing called reality. Reality is what you see. And reality becomes a reality or does not become a reality till you see it. It's very important initial interesting part of this. All of you, I don't know how many of you read a book called Autobiography of a Yogi. After introducing the Indian philosophy yoga to the West, it was done by Swami Vivekananda. So all of us who are non-native Americans, whether we are from Germany, India, America, South America, Mexican, doesn't matter. We should be thankful that today we are there and we are progressing as a society because a lot of culture from different other societies came in. So one of the predominant person who started the entire concept of Eastern philosophy in the West is Swami Vivekananda, undoubtedly. But one of the other person who spread that was Paramahansa Yogananda. So in his book, he writes that Mahavatar Babaji, the father of Kriya Yoga, he created an entire palace for his disciple Lahiri Mahashaya to go and just enjoy. So when asked, how could he do that? The answer Yogananda gives in his book is the whole cosmos is materialized as a thought of the creator. To put in the real language, Brahma sat and had a dream and the world was created. So the thought is the process by which you create reality. This has been there as a core concept of our philosophy of yoga forever. It is sad that we are rediscovering it. Rather, it's even more sad that we are made to rediscover it by science, whereas this has been in our thoughts for the last 10,000 years. So as Dr. Sri Aurobindo says, everything is consciousness. It is a graded level of consciousness. So brain doesn't create total consciousness, unlike what science is trying to achieve or science is trying to understand. And there is already a dissent in that. A lot of scientists don't believe brain is responsible for consciousness. Yes, brain is responsible for our consciousness as a human being. Why? Because if I was suddenly the gates are open to the real consciousness, I'll go crazy. If you try to pour 2 liters of milk into a small cup, it's not going to happen. The milk is going to spill. So if I blast your brain with tons and tons of information that your brain cannot keep, you'll go crazy. So brain from birth is genetically modified to create that consciousness to remain on earth and have a life on earth. But if you want to reach beyond, there are other ways. And that's where yoga comes in. Well, you might push Sri Aurobindo off and say, oh, that guy, he's just a philosopher. What does he know? True. And that's where Sir Arthur Eddington comes. Again, one of the pioneers of modern day physics, what we understand today. The stuff of the universe is mind stuff, the source and condition of physical reality. So physical reality is brought in by the observer. Physical reality doesn't exist by itself. Everything in the universe is Maya. It becomes a virtual reality that you see, you feel, you talk, you smell. It's because you do it, because you're an observer. So it is not as what we think or modern science thinks, that these are things that exist and I'm only seeing it. No. Exactly what the yogic concept says, these are things that exist because I'm seeing. Let me go back again in case it's difficult to understand. Reductionism means, and I'll go to that in the next slide only. Reductionism means I have a brain, so let me try to understand how brain understands the universe. Let's make brain responsible for my consciousness. Unfortunately, that's not the way it works. So what I'm seeing is already there, and my brain has made me see it. That's reductionism. That's what neuronal correlate means. That's what some of the scientists today are trying to say. But what yoga says, and some of the dissent voices in modern science says is, no, that's not true. Consciousness is inherent in the universe. And what you're seeing is because you are there. Had you not been there, you would have seen something, or if somebody else was there, something else would have been seen. So you are part and parcel of the universe, not just a passive observer observing just because you're there in that particular show or particular theater or particular group or particular planet. You are part and parcel of that creation. Very interesting dialogue by Sierzo almost in 44 BCE, before Christ. Why do you insist that the universe is not conscious intelligence when it gives birth to conscious intelligences? There are possibly thousands of planets like us. There are thousands of universes. Every day stars are created. There are thousands of alien lives maybe. And they're all intelligent. And you think the universe itself is dumb? So that's where the conundrum of science is. There are still those people holding to the old last figment of scientific fiction, which says brain creates everything. Whereas more and more in quantum physics is showing that's not true. Now you have to understand this is inherent part of our concept in the basic yogic concept. Ashwaghosa, 7th century Buddhist says that there's really no existence. The real existence is what you create. So who's a modern cosmologist? Who's a nuclear physicist? Who is a quantum physicist? Is this somebody called Arthur Eddington, somebody called John Wheeler, somebody called Niels Bohr, or is it Ashwaghosa who existed a few hundred years back? Same conclusion. So how do we do that? Very interesting. Let me give a suggestion how we possibly think we do that. You see a tree. As a scientist, you first see the root, you trace it to the trunk, you trace it to the leaf, and you say, oh, this is one whole tree. That's scientific way of science. Is there anything wrong in that? No. That's absolutely fine. But how does yoga see it? How does yogic see it? How does a yogi see it? Yogi enhances his perception beyond the mind of a normal human being. And we'll go to that, how that is done. So his perception increases. What do you mean by that? Very simple. A dog can hear less than 20 decibel. You cannot. Therefore, if a thief comes to your house at night and walks very slowly, you cannot hear him, but a dog can and starts barking. Where is dog in the hierarchy and where are you? You are way above, but it can do it. A male whale can connect with a female whale thousands of miles apart using subsonic waves. So is whale higher than you? No. So there is a reality way beyond us. You have to tune your brain to reach it, and that's what yoga does. So it is important to understand that it's not that the science is wrong. It's only fact is that science is limited. It's not that what we discovered today is all nonsense. No, all the discoveries today has actually led to something like quantum physics. That's why we know quantum entanglement. That's why we know what that has been said in Hindu philosophy, in yogic philosophy, 10,000 years is true. But the problem is also that you have to understand, and that's where the descent comes in science, is that only 1% of the universe is visible through a telescope, including the radio telescopes that we have now. Not the visual telescope, the radio telescope, which is 1,000,000 times more powerful than the visual telescope. Now, if the universe is infinite, its inventory is infinite. If you have a house from United States to India, you will have thousands of furnitures in it. It's impossible to count. So imagine the amount of material in a universe which itself is infinite. So if I even take the scientific sample, the sample size using a telescope, which is a radio telescope, which is 1,000 times more powerful than a visual telescope, is less than 1%. So what is the statistical odds that you really understand where your sample size is so small? Almost nothing. Your trustworthiness in your scientific experiment is zero. You do the same experiment on Earth and you try to tell people, this is what I did. People will slap you and tell you your science is non-scientific because your statistical significance is zero. So how can we, with that sort of statistical significance in understanding modern science, in understanding reality, claim we know what the universe is? Unfortunately, we don't. Now let's take back a step and understand the yogic concept of consciousness. So yoga says there is a basic thing, that's the Atma, which is beyond this physical body that you see. There are multiple bodies. I don't even want to go into that. It's a talk for a different session, different time. But we have this powerful Atma, which is part and parcel of the infinite consciousness. But to live on this earth, that Atma cannot work because that Atma is not meant to live on this earth. We need to create a physical body that is tuned to live on this earth. So we have this physical body. But the problem is every second there's rapid flux of ideas inside that brain. So brain is not tuned to understand the infinite consciousness. Brain is busy, what I'll do today? Let me sit in the evening and do my son's homework. Oh, tomorrow morning I have to go to work but drop my daughter off to college. Oh, my son is having a problem. Oh, my mother is sick. Oh, my father is ill. Oh, there's a big pandemic going on. What if my older parents fall sick and they die? So every second you're thinking. So when you turn the machinery that you have inside you for your daily things, there's no way it can perceive the infinite. You have to create it. So if you want a 5 liter of milk, you have to get a 5 liter bottle to take the milk. You cannot take a small cup and say that I can pour 5-liter milk in that. You cannot. That's the core concept that I'm trying to give, and we'll try to understand that today a little more using both the yogic concept and the scientific concept parallelly side by side. Why am I trying to do this? Because yoga is complete science. If you consider yourself a yogi and you're not aware of this, I don't think you're a yogi. You're an insult to the entire school of yoga, because the yoga on the shoulders of whom we stand today, starting from Maharishi Patanjali, are the world's best scientists. You have to understand that you don't need to have a lab, sit in MIT or Harvard to be a scientist. Half of what Einstein discovered had nothing to do with a lab. He got the lab in Princeton many years back, decades back, before he discovered for which he got the Nobel Prize. He was just a plain simple clerk sitting in one small office and doing clerical job. So where was his lab? His lab was this. And that is where the lab of Patanjali stood. That is where the lab of Swami Vivekananda is. That is where the lab of Maharishi Arvind was. So if you are living with the concept that science comes out only with the lab, my dear friends, you're losing yourself to an understanding of the real reality. Similarly, yogi does not need to have a lab, because the most powerful lab in the world is the one every one of us have. You don't need to have a piece of land inside MIT, Boston, or inside Berkeley, or inside Cerner in Geneva, because that piece of land is there in every one of us. God has given us 1600 cc's of a massive brain that is super powerful. Nobody on this earth can stop you. That's what Swami Vivekananda says. If you want to do something, let every cell of your body know, even Narayan, if he wants, even he cannot stop you. You are so powerful. The weakness is not in us. Weakness is in me, that I'm so weak. Oh, what can I do? Oh, I am a simple man. No, you're not. You're infinitely powerful. The question is, you need to discover that. So understanding of the yogic world is this: the whole universe is a conscious whole. You are part and parcel of the consciousness. So nothing in this universe is hidden from you. The difference is, I want to hear Hindi music, so I have to tune in to one of the radio stations in India and try to listen to a Hindu music. Now, if I have to listen to jazz, I don't tune into a Hindi music radio station. I will tune into a New Orleans radio station and try to hear world's best jazz. Similarly, if you want to keep your brain busy with when you'll get a Mercedes car, or when you get a Tesla, when will you be your next promotion, why Mr. X and I, both of us are same, but he got a promotion and I don't have a promotion. As long as your brain is busy with those, you'll never go bigger than that. When you use yogic technique and increase your perception, that's when you try to understand what the world is, what the universe is. It is a very interesting story with Bhrigu, and I like to tell that to a lot of people. That gives us a very good understanding. So he does a lot of penances and then goes to his father and says, "Father, what is Brahma? What is God?" So his father tells him, Shavana tells him, material is God. So he goes and gets all the material, understands everything, then gets frustrated, and then goes back to his father and says, "Father, I've done years of with all the material, but I still can't find God." So Shavana says, "Prana is God. Go and find prana." So prana, in modern terms, those who don't understand some of these ancient languages, prana basically means energy, but I don't want to go into details of that today. Basically, it's one of the energy of creation, let's put it like that. So he goes and meditates for ages and tries to find prana. He completely controls his prana. He can do miraculous things. He can create people. He can move things without even moving his hand, just by the power of his mind, by using prana, using creation, using the energy of creation. But still he's frustrated. I didn't find God. Then goes back and says, then he says, mind is Brahma. Go and find the mind, you'll get it. So you have to understand that material mind, you have to go over everything, and then you understand prana. These are all expression of the universe, of the ultimate. To go to ultimate, you have to go beyond this thing. That's why in Buddhist literature, there says there are 36 levels of existence, starting from devil, demons. I don't know whether you accept or not. I don't say that you have to accept it. And there are 5 or 6 levels of existence where you don't even have a physical body, but you have a powerful mind. So that is what is the root understanding of consciousness or God in yoga. Now, Upanishad explains, Mandukya Upanishad explains a little more as to what consciousness is. It talks about 4 levels of consciousness. The waking state, which I hope all of us are. So in that waking state, we see material objects, you, me, everything. I'm talking to you guys. The second is the dream state, which is called Taijasa, which is more subtle internal objects you see. The third is state of deep dreamless sleep, where you might come out of your body. That's what people say, you have different existence. People now talk about parallel universe. Some say maybe you go to a parallel universe. Some say no, it is just a creation of your brain. And again, I don't want to go into any of the controversies, because what we are discussing today is beyond all these small controversies. And fourth is the state of Turiya, where you're actually, in essence, living in your consciousness. That's the state of the mind where the boundaries of material object, the boundaries of dream, everything is way open. The barns are open, the horses have run. Where have the horses of consciousness have run? The horses of consciousness have run into the universe. You have understanding of the entire universe. So as Vivekananda says, when your power rises to one extent, which is a place in between your 2 eyebrows, it looks like you can see the entire universe, but you're not part of it. When it goes above that, you become part of the universe. The entire mechanism of the universe lies open to you. You understand everything. And that's why when Vivekananda thought, who's this guy? He's not even, he didn't even have a formal education. And this guy, God knows, is he acting? He goes into Samadhi or whatever he says. Is that real Samadhi? He's thinking of Ramakrishna. He says, or is he just acting? Is he doing theatrics? Is he doing dramatics? Or maybe he has epilepsy, God only knows. So Ramakrishna just touches him and he feels billions of voltage of electricity pass through him in a few seconds. And he gets the view of the entire universe for a few seconds. That's the power of consciousness. That's the power where you can reach. Because you are part of the infinite. And that's where yoga takes you. Yoga changes your brain, and we'll go scientifically how it does that. Our brain is much more powerful than you think it is. I am seeing you. I'm talking to all of you. But that's not true. I'm just talking in front of my computer. Am I an idiot? Why am I talking to my computer? There's nobody in my room. My eyes are picking up this information, the camera, my laptop, my room is lighted. I have some bookshelves around me, which has my books, but I'm talking by myself. My eyes are not seeing. My eyes are just taking the light to the back of my brain called area 1819, the visual cortex. And that visual cortex has got more than 1 trillion nerve connection with each other. 1 trillion. Can you believe it? How complex your brain is? That just allows me to see. What is it allowing me to see? That I'm talking to this damn computer. I'm not talking to any person. Either I'm crazy or I'm mad, because that's the only information my brain is giving me. How do I know I'm talking to a Zoom and there are people out there listening to me? My visual cortex does not know. So my visual cortex goes to another part of the brain 42, 43, and says, what the hell is Indranill doing? Why is he talking this nonsense in an empty room where there's nobody there? So this part of the brain then correlates and said, oh, I'm talking to Zoom and there are people in the Zoom listening to me. I'm not talking to, in an empty room, talking to a camera with my laptop. That's not rocket science. Get a new computer, brand new laptop. Try opening a Windows Word document. Can it open? No. It will ask you, what software should I use to open it? You buy a Microsoft Word, you open it. You don't buy a Microsoft Word, you cannot open it. Same with the human brain, it's just a powerful computer. So it is important to understand that millions of neurons are working together to make, and the power of the brain is infinite. And we'll talk about it a little more. So vast amount of energy is needed to just do a small things in the brain. That's why nowadays it is believed that even brain works in a quantum fashion, and we'll come to that shortly. But I just wanted you to understand how things work. So even your brain works through correlation. Today you're in an independent country, you can talk about democracy, you can curse anybody, whether you're in Bharat or whether in America. But tomorrow, if maybe you're born in North Korea, you can't. Your life would be different from birth. So your brain accordingly gets tuned to what you see. So if I go to a beautiful lake or a beautiful ocean and see the sun setting down and I see orange with me, orange colored sky, you come with me also and we both sit and see it. You think I and you are seeing the same thing. We are not. Why? It might take 400 neurons in my brain to see that orange color. You might use 300 neurons. Somebody might use 800 neurons. So the tinge of orange may be different. You might see it more yellowish. I might see it more reddish. But we all call it orange-like because we know that sort of hue is orange. But are we seeing the same thing? No. So you have to understand that our entire reality is nothing called reality. Even a sky color, you and I cannot decide in the right sense of the term. I might be seeing something totally different from you. And you may be my twin brother or sister born at the same time as me. And that's the fun. Still we are different. So it is important to understand these concepts. So yoga says, what does brain do? Chitta, which is consciousness in a more restricted term, these things that happens in the brain. For example, I'm thinking something. Every second a thought comes. Sit in one place, close your eyes. If you have never practiced meditation, try meditating, see what happens. In seconds, you will find thousands of thoughts coming. So yoga says you have to clean those thoughts. As you clean those thoughts, only then you can increase the power of your brain to understand consciousness of the infinite. Why? Very simple. When you have thoughts, thought is more powerful than what you think. Thought is not firing of some neurons inside the brain only. Thought, unfortunately, now we know, this was known in yogic science for thousands of years, has a physical existence. Just like when you are powerful enough, you can create a palace out of nothing. Or if you are not, there are people who I know who can bend a spoon without even touching the spoon. And he has done that in front of 500 people. In broad daylight, 500 people sitting all around, he can bend the spoon at least 4 to 5 feet away from the spoon. So, called psychokinesis. And there's not only one person in the world who can do it. There are many people in this world who can do psychokinesis. Even if you practice, maybe one day you'll all be able to. So this power of the brain can only come when you clean the brain. So body has the brain, the thoughts has a physical entity. And that's why you fall sick. When you have stress, stress is in the brain. Why is your body affected? Your body is affected because stress in the brain releases a bunch of chemicals like interleukin-6, TNF-alpha, which makes your heart go fast and have heart disease, which can maybe produce cancer. So thought has a material existence even in our own body. Years back, we thought mind and body is two different entities. Mind doesn't relate to the body, body doesn't relate to the mind. Now we know they are close as being together. Everything that a body does, mind knows. Everything that a mind does, body knows. And unfortunate part is when you think negative things, mind also will think negative things, because mind and body is connected. So when your mind thinks negative things, what happens? You'll produce a bunch of hormones in the bodies like adrenaline, which makes your heart go fast and can kill you. Sudden cardiac death is the largest cause of death in America. Every 2 minutes, by the time I started talking till now, maybe at least 10 Americans have died because of sudden cardiac death. And even in some of the places which has got the best helicopter or ambulance service, still 70% die before an ambulance or helicopter can come and pick you up after you dial 911. So yoga understood that 10,000 years back. That is not what you only think in your brain. Everything that you think in your brain has a physical reality. And you have to stop that physical reality to be healthy. So you slowly clean away. But there's another concept which yoga taught millions of years back, and we are slowly understanding, or even science has not understood it today. That is subconsciousness. Our mind is like an iceberg. When Titanic hit, it hit an iceberg that didn't look that big, because only 1/9 of the iceberg is up. We can also see 1/9 of the iceberg from the ship. You can only see 1/9 of your mind. 9/10 is hidden in your subconscious. Some evenings you're depressed. Is the reason for depression? You might feel, hey man, why am I depressed? There's nothing to be depressed about, but I'm still depressed. Why am I anxious? I'm anxious. I don't know why, but I'm still anxious. Tell me one person in this world who haven't thought like that. It happens to everybody. It happens to you. It happens to me. It happens to everybody. Why do you think this is happening? That's because you have the restricted ability to just read your own mind. Unfortunately, you don't have the capacity to reach that subconscious state of your mind. And that's where yoga takes you. As you cleanse, so-called cleanse, I'm not sure the word to cleanse is right. Better word would be neuroplasticity. As you practice meditation, there's neuroplasticity. So your brain gets more clearer and your neuronal connection gets changed from a depressive, anxious brain to a brain which is not anxious, not depressed. Then slowly you have your unconsciousness covering. That's why Yogi understands their unconscious mind, what is in their subconsciousness, and they can treat that too. So you have to expand your consciousness first amongst yourself. You don't have to even go outside. And the moment you do that through the process of yoga, you can slowly cleanse those subconscious thoughts that come up, which you do not even know that they have come up, but they make you suffer. Because if I take you to Hawaii, whatever you will see, and if I make you sit in a room, close your eyes, show you the picture of Hawaii and make you close your eyes and think of Hawaii, you think of the beautiful Pacific Ocean, you think of beautiful mountains, you think of beautiful island, the same areas of your brain is activated. Yogi understood that thousands of years back. So you can change your mind by those thought process. So what you are seeing is what you are believing and what you are creating. If you are getting depressed, if you are getting anxious, you'll get more neurons that causes depression, more neuronal connection that causes anxiety. You practice meditation for 4 weeks, you can change those neurons. That's called neuroplasticity. So these vrittis or these subtle thought processes go on coming from our subconsciousness till you sort of cleanse them, clean them. Then you have a look into your subconscious. When the entire brain and its entire system, conscious or subconscious, is changed, that's where you get the power to understand beyond you. And there are some physiological correlates of that, which I'll talk to you shortly. So there are stages of doing this. Yoga clearly defines those stages for you. You don't have to search them out. What are the stages? First is you're going to take your mind off those thought processes called pratyahara. Everything that attaches you to the material, try to take it off. Then you have to be mindful. Today in America, there's a big shout, oh, mindfulness, 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 as if they've discovered something, you know, like Archimedes, Eureka, what a big discovery. Mindfulness is there in yogic philosophy 10,000 years. Patanjali wrote about it. Mindfulness is dharana. You have to be mindful. Whether you're mindful with the sound, there's anahata chakra sound, which you can hear if you practice meditation for many years, or you're mindful on your breath, or you go on chanting Om and you be mindful. It doesn't matter. There are multiple ways of doing it. You choose your own style. Nothing is universe is fixed. You're God yourself. You can choose your own style to do it, but you have to do it. So dharana is not a new discovery that Americans have discovered for the first time 15 years back in University of Massachusetts by Don Kabat-Zinn. It has been there in Hindu and Buddhist thoughts millions of back, because all that Buddha did was he wanted to cleanse the Hinduism from all the rituals that had crept in during his time. He wanted to take, that's why Advaita, Vedanta and Buddhism is very close. There are subtle differences about God. I don't even want to go to that. Those are academic differences, but basically they are very similar to each other. And what a lot of Americans don't understand, and I have talked to some of the so-called big educational leaders, is Buddhism is not a religion that has been started by Buddha. Buddhism started 400 years after Buddha died. It was more a political decision than decision by Buddha himself. All that Buddha did was to cleanse the Hinduism that came down during his time and was filled with rituals. He wanted to cleanse Hinduism of those rituals. He created no new religion. And one more thing that he did is he presented that in the words of the common people by transforming Sanskrit into Prakrit, which was the common language at that time. But people in the West are deluded. They think Buddhism is a separate religion. Buddhism bought these concepts for the first time. No, Buddhism did not. I don't care. I mean, I'm not into religion at all. But you have to understand the real history to understand yogic philosophy, yogic understanding. So this is the core of yoga. And mindfulness is not enough. After mindfulness comes meditation, dhyana, meditation. Then comes samadhi, and samadhi are of multiple levels. Again, I don't want to talk about that. There's basic level of samadhi, and then there are higher levels of samadhi. So samadhi, the basic level of samadhi is when you can concentrate on one single point for more than 12 seconds. That's the basic most level. So you are understanding, sort of, you're putting your leg in the ripples of the ocean. You're not even, that's what Ramakrishna said, I'm still counting the sands. I've not even entered the ocean, leave alone swimming it and going to the other side. If Ramakrishna can say that, who are you and I? So you just touch your feet in the waves. That's the beginning of samadhi. Still the whole ocean is left to swim. The entire British Channel is left to swim. Forget about that. So you have to understand this. These are the concepts that has been there with us for a long time. Now, the fun part is that, and that's why there's a lot of dissent when some people say, okay, neuronal decides what we are conscious. No, because in 2014, European researchers in a journal called Nature, which is one of the world's topmost journals, as you know, quite a few Nobel Prize came from their original articles was in the Nature. They actually showed that people with a lot of abstract thinking who did meditation had gamma waves in their brain. And there's some thought process that gamma waves is responsible for consciousness. We'll not go into that, but what I do want to say is, we know Dr. Roger Davidson in a lab in Wisconsin, he has put EEG brain on multiple people who have meditated for 5 years, for 10 years, including some of the people referred by Dalai Lama who have meditated for 15, 20 years. And he saw vast changes in their brain. Normally, if I put an electrode into your brain, I'll find bizarre waves called beta waves. But when you start meditating, you get slower waves called alpha waves. But long-term meditators have gamma waves so slow, unbelievable. So brain is like a paradoxical organ. Does that seem strange to you? No. Vivekananda told this 200 years back. What did he say? He said our brain is like a monkey. It constantly dances from one tree to other. The other comparison he gave is a clean pond where you can see the floor. You can see every fish in that pond. The water is so clean. Now you start hitting it with stones. What will happen? There'll be ripples all over. You can't see the floor. So that's exactly what is happening with your and my brain. I'm hitting it with 100,000 millions of thoughts every second. So you can't see the floor. So your brain is just that monkey dancing around from one tree to other. That's beta waves. Now I'm listening to you. I'm talking. I'm seeing. So my area 18, 19, if I put small electrode there, you will see they have slow alpha waves because my brain is concentrating. If I put small electrodes into brain area 41, 42, above my ears in the temporal lobe, you'll find slow electrode there. But if I'm not a meditator, if you put my electrode anywhere else, you will find those crazy beta waves because that part of the brain is not active. So imagine people with 5, 10, 15 years of meditation can have such gamma waves. What would have happened if we did EEG on somebody like Ramakrishna who used to go into meditation at the whiff of a sound? How powerful their brain is. So you have to create that. You cannot become an Arnold Schwarzenegger with 56-inch chest and 22-inch bicep without going to the gym. You have to hit the gym for 22 years and then create that biceps or create that muscular chest. Similarly, you need to do brain exercise to develop that powerful brain. And that brain exercise is yoga. And again, the other unfortunate part is in the Western world, especially in the Americas, and to some extent in Europe also, yoga means just like going to the gym and doing some asanas. Asanas is 2 to 5% of yoga. 95% of yoga is meditation. So when I have people coming and telling me that, oh, Dr. Basu Ray, I've been doing yoga for the last 20 years. I go every day after work from 5 to 6 p.m. Then I tell them that there's no use doing that for 22 years. You have wasted your 22 years. Why? Because you should do Pilates, you should do swimming, you should do everything from 4 to 5 or 5 to 6. Yoga is not exercise that you need to do going to a gym. Yoga is 24/7, 365. Why? Because the other 23 hours, you're creating those interleukin-6 that has killed millions of people with COVID. Yes, not even a single people till now has died of COVID. If you guys have not heard that well, I'm repeating that. Not even a single person till date has died of COVID virus itself. All have died because of body's reaction to COVID. Body creates interleukin-6, TNF alpha, and a bunch of dangerous chemicals that not only kills the virus, but also damages and kills your lung, kills your heart, kills your kidney, and you die. So it is like you're trying to kill a mosquito, hitting your body, biting you with a machine gun. Obviously, the mosquito will be killed, so will be you. So these are the dangerous chemicals that you're releasing 23 hours if you do if you do yoga only for 1 hour. Secondly, even that 1 hour, only 5% is actually yoga because 95% of yoga has nothing to do with asanas. If yoga was only asanas, out of the 196 aphorism, the Maharishi Patanjali would have written 196 aphorisms on asanas. Unfortunately, he wrote only 3. Out of the 196 aphorisms, only 3 are dedicated to asanas. The rest has nothing to do with asanas. So it is important to understand it's a lifestyle. It is not a physical exercise. Physical exercise may be as good as Pilates or maybe slightly better. I don't know. I don't even want to go into the controversy because it's a waste of time. Because when you can get much more, somebody tells me he's leaving $1 million for me or 100 crore rupees for me, why should I go and ask him for $10 or 10 rupees? Am I stupid? So if somebody is giving you a longer life, a life without disease, a life where you're happy, contented, and you say, okay, I don't want that. I just want to do some physical exercise so that I get cardiovascularly more healthy. That doesn't make sense. So it is important to understand that science has understood some of the basics. When we do brain EEGs or long-term meditators, we do see this self-induced high amplitude gamma synchrony. So their brain starts acting as one. And that's the beginning of understanding consciousness. Until you do that through practice of yoga and meditation, you will remain a human brain and you'll never understand the truth. Let's understand one more thing. So we always think about plants. What does modern science say? Plants, oh, they're way down in the hierarchy. We are so advanced. We can see, we can talk. We can create a self-driven car called Tesla. We can go to Mars. I mean, two of the, just went to the Virgin Atlantic founder, Branson, and Tesla, the Amazon, Jeff Bezos just went to some 40,000 miles above the earth. Oh, we are great creators. What about plants? Plants, they are dead things, just standing there, not doing nothing. But you have to understand the plants were there, at least scientifically speaking, more than we are there on earth. So when Jagdish Chandra Bose said they had life, people did not initially believe it till he showed it. And now we know plant uses superior technology than all of us we have ever can use till now. Till now we haven't been able to use the technology. And I'll show you how. But let me take you to a story that is very interesting. And that has got some significance here. And I'll explain once I show you that. So Paramahansa Yogananda as a kid was sent to Benares to talk to somebody. So he did not know where to find that. So he went to another person who was a yogi and told him that I want to meet Mr. X. So that yogi told him, don't worry, sit here, my son. I think he's coming, he's on the way. So and the yogi just sat in front of him and they were chatting. So they chatted for 10-15 minutes. Then Paramahansa Yogananda started hearing sound. In those days, people used to wear wooden type of slippers. So when you walk on a wooden staircase, you can hear that sound, clattering sound. So he heard the clattering sound as if somebody is coming. And then that person who he was looking for appeared. And then they both talked. And then Paramahansa went with him and both were talking. So he was a little inquisitive. He asked him sir, how did you know that I'm waiting for you? He said, why? The yogi with whom you sat, he came and he called me. And he said, this guy is waiting for you in my office, in my chamber. Why don't you come across so that he can meet up with you? This is a chapter. I don't know how many of you read it. It's called Yogi with Two Bodies. Let's see the next movie and see what it means.
The leaf, it turns out, is a remarkable piece of technology. Light lands on a leaf in quantum energy packets called photons. Every second it spends in bright sunlight brings a leaf thousands of trillions of photons. And almost every one of the red ones is captured and its energy processed. Let's trace the path of that energy through the plant. The first stop is the antenna, an assembly of hundreds of thousands of chlorophyll molecules. Hit by the photon, an electron within the chlorophyll will become excited and use the extra energy to bounce through the antenna to a bridging area. This is composed of a complicated arrangement of chlorophyll molecules. You can imagine it as an intertwined maze of roped bridges that, if you can find the path through, lead to the all-important reaction center. Once at the reaction center, the electron creates a permanently separated charge that is essentially energy that can be stored. It's the same thing that makes a fully charged battery such a useful source of power. At that point, the energy is safe and properly stored, ready for use by the plant. There's just one catch. The reaction center is a nearly impossible place to reach. Getting through the bridging area is a nightmare, and it has to be done quickly. The maze of wobbly rope bridges will absorb all the photon's energy if it takes too long to find the reaction center. A packet of energy has about 1 nanosecond to get across the bridge. Some might chance upon the right path and make it through in time. Most, though, won't. This is where the quantum tricks and Gregory Scholl's research team comes in. Their conclusion? Our results suggest that the energy of absorbed light resides in 2 places at once. This weird phenomenon is officially known as quantum superposition. It is written into the mathematics of quantum theory, which describes the position of a particle only in terms of probabilities of finding it in various different places. In certain circumstances, the particle can occupy multiple positions at once. And it turns out that to achieve the remarkable efficiency of photosynthesis, algae and their evolutionary descendants, plants, employ quantum superposition so that the energy can simultaneously travel along all possible paths to the reaction center. That way, it always gets there on time. As far as we understand it, when a photon of sunlight hits a leaf, its energy is passed to electrons within the leaf's chlorophyll molecules. Those excited electrons move to the reaction center not by random hops, as was thought, but by exploiting their quantum mechanical ability to take all available paths at the same time. It's such an exciting discovery because it raises the possibility that we could do the same. If the messy world of biology can exploit this quantum mechanical trick to the maximum by evolutionary trial and error, perhaps we can deliberately engineer the same feats to occur in our own solar panels.
So the electron, the superposition basically means the electron is in 2 places, like the yogi. He has developed that much of energy or prana or power that he can be sitting in front of Paramahansa Yogananda and talking to him. He can project another body which goes and calls this guy. Whether that happened or no, I don't know. Whether you believe him or not, I don't know. And I don't want to comment on that. But this is possible in a quantum scale. So what we think, what science thinks, the plant is so old, doesn't have the technology. As you can see, each of those simple leaves that you kick with your legs when you walk over a grass has got more complex technology and than the biggest planes we build, the biggest rockets we build, the biggest spaceships we built till today. We are nowhere near that technology. And had we had even 1/1,000,000th of that technology today, then we would have been a different planet by now. So it's important to understand that we are much limited. And it's not that we don't have the capacity, we do. But we have to find the way, and the way is the path of yoga. Let's go understand a little more of our brain, then we'll understand how powerful we really are. So when yoga says that we are super powerful, they're not wrong. Let's see this.
It can be tempting to think of the brain as a computer. Digital computers process information by harnessing a network of billions of on and off switches called transistors. And for decades, neuroscientists believe the brain functioned in much the same way, with neurons.
Sorry about that.
It can be tempting to think of the brain as a computer. Digital computers process information by harnessing a network of billions of on and off switches called transistors. And for decades, neuroscientists believe the brain functioned in much the same way, with neurons playing the part of these simple switches. In this understanding of the human brain, neurons themselves weren't intelligent. It was the entire network of 100 billion neurons that made the human brain the most advanced information processing machine in the known universe. Or so we thought. In the 1980s, a more complex picture began to emerge. We learned that neurons aren't all the same. When stimulated, individual dendrites can express different voltages. This was the first clue that dendrites could be processing information independently, and that our biological computing system might be more powerful than we thought. This is Jutta Poirazi. A paper she co-published this year reveals just how much we underestimated neurons and dendrites.
So when Matthew Larcombe in his lab discovered the presence of some peculiar types of dendritic spikes, he came to me and we discussed what could be the functional role of these spikes. So the main difference of this type of spikes compared to the ones we know already is the stronger the stimulus, the smaller the amplitude of the dendritic spike that they discovered. This is something that had not been seen before in other types of animals, and we didn't know what could be their functionality.
Poirazi built a computational model of neurons as a two-layer network, where dendrites functioned like processors within processors.
We designed the model so that it would reproduce this decreasing amplitude behavior. What does this mean? It means that as you give the model a stronger excitatory stimulus, the output of the model should get smaller. And we wonder what could be the computation that would benefit from such a feature. And we thought of exclusive OR.
The exclusive OR function, known as XOR, is a complex logic gate commonly seen in neural networks. It yields a binary output of 1 if one, but only one of the inputs is 1. In other words, a signal is only passed on when it is graded with the right combination of inputs. Mathematical theorists thought an entire network of neurons would be required to compute the XOR function.
And the main novelty of our work is this is no longer true. If you have a neuron that implements this type of a specific transfer function that is produced by these dendritic spikes, then you can solve the exclusive OR problem without requiring a large network.
So while it may be tempting to think about the human brain as a computer, it's maybe more accurate to think about it as 100 billion tiny supercomputers.
Our individual neurons are much more powerful than the other types of neurons we've seen before.
So I'd like to finish but with one clinical here. So our brain is much more powerful. But having said that, we need to use that to understand the real consciousness. There's been many clinical studies also. In one of them, which I show here, they had people with cardiac arrest, and 41 of them had near-death experience. So their brain line was straight, the heart line was straight, so they're basically dead. But they could exactly report and recollect what happened when they were so-called dead. So obviously that doesn't happen when your brain is not working or your heart is not working according to modern science. So there must be something outside the brain which made them understand what they were doing in that period. And that's what consciousness is all about. Our brain is an instrument that we use to live on this earth. We can make it more powerful by following yoga and understanding that the whole universe is inherently conscious and we are part and parcel of that consciousness. So the root of the understanding is there's a pathway to it, and the pathway is through yoga. While science is right, but science is restricted in its understanding because science is yet to reach those realms that people can reach through practice of yoga and meditation. One interesting thing I just wanted to point out, though not much related to this particular talk, this is Carla Schatz. She's a professor of neuroscience at Stanford. She, for the first time, showed inside mother's womb, babies can do wiring of their brain, which is called neuroplasticity. I like this because there's an interesting story in Mahabharata which says that, as you know, Arjuna's son Abhimanyu could enter the Chakra VaYU, which is a battle formation, but he didn't know how to leave it. The reason was when his mother was taught, when Arjuna was telling his wife, his mother Subhadra slept off while he was trying to explain how he has to come out of it. So Abhimanyu only knew how to enter it but could not come out. No, maybe this is not true. This is just a story. But it is exciting that what Kala Shad showed, that even when you're inside mother's womb, which is a dark world, you can't see anything, your eyes are not formed, even then the brain can pick up and make changes to make you and me what we are today. I'd like to thank you for your Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Indranil. That was a wonderful presentation. I wish we had more time. The consciousness is a huge topic by itself. Now you presented the concept, quantum physics, mind, consciousness through scientific approach explained by scientists, and yogic approach as explained by Swami Vivekananda and later by Paramahansa Yogananda and Sri Aurobindo. You have eloquently explained the yogic concept per Upanishadic interpretation, that explanation of Atman, Brahman, and Prana. Beautiful understanding of this elusive phenomena that is scientific, just not reductionist. Okay, so there is one question by Autumn Bukhart. Given the limitations of current science to explain yoga, how do you suggest researchers protect yoga concept from being overly translated by science?
So the question is, there's no question of overly translation, because you have to understand that whatever we know about yoga has, in the last 2 to 3 decades, has come from scientific research only. What has been written by Patanjali 10,000 years back, now we put in electrodes into human brain, living human brain, and we have put in functional MRIs, we put in CAT scanners, we have shown all this. So I don't think there is, we do know the science has limitation because the concepts have not expanded. But in the last 15 years, as I pointed out, with the expansion of physics, physics today has become almost like metaphysics. Things like quantum entanglement. I mean, even Einstein fought against it for like 15, 20 years before he had to force to understand this, that's how the nature of the universe is, which our gurus taught to us for 10,000 years. And whether you like it, you don't like it, that is what the truth is. So I don't think science will overextend or anything like that. Science will take its own time. But the good news is that scientists has already started expressing interest. Today, there are thousands of researchers all over the world. I mean, every day I'm seeing maybe 10, 15, 20 in a year. We see a couple of thousand papers coming out on yoga and different aspects of yoga. Yoga for treating Parkinsonism, yoga for treating heart disease, yoga for treating cancers. That shows that science is slowly picking up. Remember, we have two different problems and both are equally bad. Today, we have yogis in India who want to keep away from science, which is very wrong. Because of their lack of understanding, they want to keep away from science. Because, as I said, some of the biggest scientists in the world on whose shoulders we are standing are people like Patanjali, Maharishi Arvind, and these people. They understood the world in a different fashion. So a yogi today, given his restriction in knowledge, doesn't want to go into science and try to spin all ritualistic nonsense. That's not acceptable. So we have to bring yoga to the real science where it belongs to respect people like Maharishi Patanjali. On the other aspect, we have the scientists who think, oh, that is some nonsense, esoteric, useless. So they also need to be educated. So there needs to be education on both the sides. And that marriage is very, very important to take yoga to where it really belongs. Because the universe belongs to yoga. That is the ultimate truth. And science is slowly understanding that, slowly but definitely. So years back, one big example of that is 15, 20 years back, you could not do a research on meditation and say blood pressure. Today, you can even get $1 million. Lorenzo Cohen gets millions of dollars to research meditation and yoga on breast cancer patients. This couldn't have happened 20 years back because there was no institution in this country which paid that money for a for any research on something like yoga. So things are improving. It's not that science will misdo it. It's that we have to guide science. People who understand yoga, they have to become scientific. People who are scientific, they have to understand yoga. And it's people like you and me who have to take that important responsibility to guide them. So just like what you guys are doing, you have created, this university is providing the appropriate knowledge, a complete mixture of the best in yogic philosophy and the best in science. That is what is needed. Any one side is bad, whether it is pure science or pure yoga is bad, because everything is yoga is science. What is not science in yoga is because you and I don't know about it. It's not that there's no science. It's that you and I don't know about it. Maybe in 100 years we will. Maybe in 200 years we will. But the try should be from today. Have I answered your question?
Yeah, I think so. But again, this is very, the explanation can go into much details because of the nature of the question. Sriji has commented that she felt that it's very interesting session. And Doctor, you mentioned during your talk that if even the heart and brain stopped, still the person was able to remember the happenings during, that time. So the question is, was that because of consciousness, or could you please elaborate on that?
Yeah, so I'll give you both the explanation, which is science and which is the science is yet to understand. So as you all know, we have 5 different bodies. This is just the physical body outside that we have created to be on this earth. And as you know, a lot of people, including some of the Dalai Lama, some of the Hindu rishis, they can actually bring out their body. You must have heard the story about Adi Shankara. So when he went into discussion with all over the country and he beat everybody, all the biggest intellectuals, finally he got beaten in one place because they said, you claim you know God, but you've never married. You do not know what sex is. So how can you understand God? So he had to leave his body and go into the body of a king. And similar expression is there also in the words of Brahmananda, who's the first actually president. He's supposed, they call him not the real, but the so-called son of Ramakrishna. Because as you know, Vivekananda never held any post in Ramakrishna mission. Though he started Ramakrishna Vedanta Mutt, but he never had any post. The first president of Brahmananda. So Brahmananda had a very important point. Brahmananda said, if you don't feel sex, then you can't be a sadhu. Because a sadhu is somebody who has gone over materialism and reached that spot. If you don't have that feeling, there's nothing you conquer, so you can't reach that stage. Same they said with Adi Shankara. So Adi Shankara had to take that material understanding and come back to his own body, which he left in a cave, because the understanding is very simple. The whole you're part and parcel of the universe. You come to this world and you are a perfect machine to enjoy this world. But that's not your limited part. That's only a small part of your limitation. You have to understand that there are parts of you which science has not understood till now, which is your other bodies. So with your other bodies, you can exactly see what your physical body is doing. There are books after books. And they are not written by anybody who is from India, who understands yoga, who are Hindu. No, at all. They are not Hindus, they are not Buddhists, they don't believe in reincarnation, just like Islam or Christianity does not believe in reincarnation. They have written books because they themselves went to this physical place where they actually died. Their death certificate was written. They had straight line in their heart and brain, but they could see what was doing. They could see surgeons beating up their chest, anesthesias beating up their chest. They're getting shocked. Their physical body jumping because of the high voltage shock that they're getting to bring them back to life. So there are tons of books. They're all lies? It can't be. And what about a 4-year-old guy talking Arabic who's born in Mississippi, just 4 years old? He doesn't even know the geography where Arab is, and he's talking in Arabic. And then he says he comes from a village in Lebanon. So you have to understand that there is much more to science than this physical body. But science will take time to understand. So consciousness is there at every level. This body has consciousness, but it's restricted. but there are other bodies that you have, because your Atma is part of the infinite. So Atma understands the real consciousness of the entire universe. You don't even have to go to Atma. There are bodies inside you which has better, wider understanding of consciousness. So I personally believe that's what happens. You just come out of this physical layer and you can still see what is going on with your physical body. And they relate it, they give it minute by minute. And the fun part is that because I'm a doctor, I know this. Nurses and doctors who are in a near-death situation, they maintain minute by minute what is happening. 215, adrenaline was given. 216, this happened. 218, you were shocked. And they exactly relate the same thing after dying. So it can't be false. It can't be they are lying, because hundreds of doctors, the rooms are generally filled with nurses and people who see their bodies are straight line. So this cannot other than be truth. Now, if you can give a scientific explanation or not, that's your problem and my problem. But that's not the real problem, because the universe does it the way it likes it. You either take it or you leave it. You want to believe it, you believe it. You don't want to believe it, you don't believe it. And the scientists who don't believe it, people also don't believe them, because that's why there's so much dissent. People believe, no, what you're talking doesn't make sense. How can this happen? How can near-death experience happen? How can people who have died have a straight line talk what is going on in the OR? So there are much more things, and scientists now understand that if you look at consciousness, there are a lot of research in consciousness. So-called hardcore scientists, even they believe that what they know is minuscule part. There are a lot more things to know. But answering your question, I think the consciousness there comes from the other bodies. We have a more internal body, not the Atma. Atma is much deeper. There are other bodies, there are more subtle bodies that we have. And it's those bodies, I think, can tell what is going on with your physical body.
Thank you very much. Beautiful explanation, Dr. J. As part of our master's program, we learn all the yoga techniques, yoga concept, Ashtanga yoga practices, and also we cover yoga therapy, which for all the common ailments, including cardiovascular disease. The one interesting thing I would like to bring up is maybe in the form of question is your research centers, they use yoga and meditation for cardiovascular diseases. Can you elaborate for our students, how the yoga research and yoga therapy has been applied in the research centers and application of the yoga?
Oh, absolutely. You see, Western countries, the largest cause of death is cardiac disease. Cardiac disease causes twice the amount of death than cancer, all cancer together. And the death has been increasing despite massive development. You have a heart attack today, I can go put in a stent and save your life. But the problem is I can't save the disease burden. Disease burden is increasing. That's where yoga has come. That's why government is spending millions and billions of dollars, not only in America and the Western nation, even in India. That's why yoga has got a big scope. Why? See, you have to understand that I can put in a stent, but you'll need another stent in 10 years. I can do your bypass surgery and save your life now. You'll need another bypass because all those lines that I created, they get blocked again. So what will stop that from happening? What will stop that from happening is inflammation in your body. What stops inflammation? Not the drugs we have today, because the inflammation is self-created. Your stress is creating it. So your stress in your brain creates those inflammation, and those inflammation leads to all this. So if you want to prevent another heart attack, if you want to prevent a cancer, and not only in heart attack, even in cancers, now there is almost all oncologists believe, it's no more a theory, that if you already have a cancer, but if a stress level is high, your cancer increases like anything. If you have a heart attack and you have stress, your heart attack gets repeated more than 20 times. So what yoga therapy does is a couple of things. One is it actually prevents disease. Number two, it prevents aging. Because of yoga research and yoga therapy, a new concept has come in. That concept is called temporal aging and normal aging. What does that mean? So if I was born 50 years back, my age is 50. But if I practice 5 years of yoga, my age comes down to 42. What does that mean? Chronologically, I'm still 50. But my body has a mechanism like a 42-year-old guy. So after 10 years of practice, a 90-year-old man will be only 75 or 65. And you see that all the time. You go to Himalayas, there's a 90-year-old man climbing more faster than you and me, who's just 50. Because physiologically, their body is like 50 years old. In 2009, Elizabeth Blackburn got a Nobel Prize on that. And they showed that your telomerase activity can be decreased by meditation. So your aging decreases. So yoga therapy has got a huge scope. Modern medicine just understood that. And that's where we need to come in. We have so many things. We have Chinese medicine and all those things, acupuncture. Nothing comes even close, even a minimally close to the amount of research that we have on yoga, and that can be applied today. You don't even have to go tomorrow. You can apply it today. So I think there's a huge scope, not only to prevent disease, but also in those who already have disease. Like, I'll give you an example. Today, I have a patient who comes with heart attack with me. I give them 5 medications. They tell me, Dr. Saab, from morning to evening, all that I'm doing is eating medications. Despite that, within a month, their chance of getting another stroke is 30%. Their chance of getting another heart attack is 28%. But you can, despite taking all the modern medicine, don't forget that. And some of these medicines are so costly, half of your pocket will blow out with them, if you are, even after covering with insurance. But you can prevent all this by practicing meditation and yoga. So this has got very strong economic ramification. Leave alone smaller countries or poorer countries. Even America, the system is breaking down. We don't have money to land for providing Medicare support to anybody after, say, 20, 25 years. So your or my children may not be having Medicare coverage even because of the cost of medicine. So this is a cheaper, not only cheaper, it's almost free, proven science which you can use. So somebody who's getting trained today will be the doctors of tomorrow. Even doctors, they need to learn, and they are learning. More and more medical schools are starting to have yoga as part of their medical curriculum so that they learn how they can treat patients without having to prescribe a medicine. You can treat a patient successfully without prescribing any medicine, and actually make a difference in their lives. Not one people, not two people, but millions of people's life.
Wonderful. What a noble work you have been doing, combining both yoga and the science. And I hope more and more doctors and research fraternity will follow this noble path. And I have last question, which is I'm sure it's very relevant to the current situation and resonates well with what the challenge the whole universe is facing. You have spearheaded public education to use yoga to prevent COVID as an eminent physician and professor in public health. And also, you have written multiple newspapers and blogs, in popular, newspapers in India and also here in US. Can you please elaborate on that topic so that it will be educated information for the audience?
So you see, COVID, which has killed millions, there are 3 important places where yoga can work. COVID comes in three ways. One is mild disease to almost no symptoms. Number 2 is moderate disease where you're hospitalized. And third is death, severe disease where you die. So let's take mild to moderate disease. In mild to moderate disease, what happens is, even if you don't get COVID, you still are depressed because there is lockdowns, there's economic loss, people have lost their job. Number 1, just 4 weeks of yoga will prevent depression because yoga completely changed the brain's neuroanatomy by neuroplasticity. So you will not be depressed. Plus this anxiety. Oh, will my father get a disease? He's 80 years old. Will he die? This anxiety doesn't help anybody. But it does make you get COVID also, because when you have anxiety, as I said, every thought in our brain has a physical reality also, which you have to understand, which these sannyasis, the yogis have been telling for millions of years, but we have never give them any heed. Is what it does, depression not only depresses you from your brain, emotional aspect, it also decreases your immunity. So when you are depressed, it increases your chance of getting viral infection. Certainly any viral infection, leave alone COVID. And of course COVID. So your chance of COVID will be increased. Your chance of getting disease will be increased by this stress. Economic downturn also will increase your chance of getting COVID. So when you practice meditation, you decrease all the 3. What do you decrease? A, you decrease depression. or you can completely stop having depression because you completely change the brain circuit that causes depression. Number two, when you do that, you stop producing interleukin 6 and other compounds, which actually lead you to the immunological damage. As I said in my talk, that till now, not even a single person in this world died directly due to the virus. Actually, thousands of people had had heart problems. Only in 14% people could find virus inside their heart. So what does that mean? That death is not because of the virus directly, it is because of body's reaction against the virus. What is body producing? It is producing interleukin 6, it is producing interleukin 13, it is producing TNS alpha. Though there has not been much research into COVID, because COVID is a new phenomenon, but we have done tons of research in other subjects. Cancer patients similarly have high interleukin 6. You make them do meditation for 4 weeks, the interleukin 6 level goes down. You make them do meditation for 3 months, there goes down even more. So it's a dose dependent, just like a drug, dose dependent effect. So had you been practicing yoga for the last 6 months, maybe your chance of getting COVID is next to zero, because your chance of getting depressed is next to zero. Your chance of getting anxiety is next to zero. Because what you have to understand in this world is, it doesn't matter who you are. If you're Jesus Christ, or if you're Ram Krishna, in this world, you have to, Ramakrishna had a throat cancer. Jesus Christ was killed by people pouring iron all over his body. You may be God yourself, but when you come to the earth, you have to follow the role of earth. And that can be sadness, happiness, and everything. And that's why Buddha said that when you come to earth, pain is mandatory. It's not possible that you'll pass through earth without any pain. So pandemic will happen, your parents will die, you will die, your son will have a problem, that's mandatory. But then his next line is very important. That's where yoga comes in. He says, pain is mandatory, but suffering is optional. So if you want to suffer or not, that is optional. And the only protection you have is yoga. Pain is mandatory. You can be Jesus Christ, still you'll face the same thing, because that's what earth is all about. You can be the biggest God on earth. You can be Ram Krishna, doesn't matter. You can be Vivekananda, still his mother lived without food a few days because he couldn't provide food to his house. He's supposed to be Shiva himself. But suffering is mandatory. So suffering is optional. That's where yoga comes in. So number one. Number two is medium disease you'll never get. If you can't produce interleukin 6, you're not going to damage your lung. There's no ways you'll get moderate disease. You'll never go into a ventilator. And certainly you'll never die. So this is the vaccine that your body has itself created. But I don't take the vaccine and then I go on blaming, oh my God, such a big problem, such a big problem. And you don't need to do it forever. Just do it for 20 minutes. 5 minutes of asana, 15 minutes of meditation, 4 to 5 days a week for 3-4 weeks. You'll see the change. Does that make sense?
Very well said. It is very very good advice you have given us for how to beat this pandemic and stay healthy. And of course, I wish we had more time. This is a very vast subject. And on behalf of all the viewers and also VaYU, my humble pranams, and thank you for taking your time and spending that time with us to enlighten us on this topic. And